Hi, this is Callie Zumphy from the Echo Group, and in this recording, I'm going to be giving you a general overview of our electronic health record, EchoVantage, and I would like to focus on a few of our features in particular. Our placements feature, our foster care forms, and our client portal. So let's start with the overview. EchoVantage is a web-based product, so I am using this URL link to log into my database. Now I'm using my Chrome browser, but I could also use Firefox or Edge or Safari. I'm signing in with my laptop, but I could also use a tablet or an iPad or a Chromebook if I wanted to as well. So I'm going to sign in with my username and password. And the first area that I'm brought to is this clinical home tab here. So when a user logs in, they're going to be taken directly to the Vantage Point, and the first tab that they have access to see is going to be their landing page. Right now, I'm logged in as an administrative user. So I have every single feature turned on for me, but that would not be a usual thing for an end user. It's very easy to configure what a user group has access to. So just keep that in mind as I show you around EchoVantage. So EchoVantage has the clinical, fiscal, and reporting elements all within this one application. So one of the things that I love most about EchoVantage is that even with everything turned on, all of the features and components are fairly central to this landing page that I'm on right now. So I have my clinical homepage right here, which is showing me my client list, the scheduler and messages and alerts for myself. The fiscal overview takes me to the billing portion of the system. And we have two tools we use for reporting. We have our Power BI dashboards, and then we have our menu reports all built in SSRS. So to navigate around the features of EchoVantage, you have the tabs on the Vantage Point, and then you have everything on the left-hand side here. Now, no matter where you're navigating in EchoVantage, this bar on the left will stay here, and you can collapse it if you need to. And you'll always have these icons up here, which are important because this is what will log you out. This takes you to our in-app help documentation, our reports, like I just mentioned earlier, and then quick access to your messages and alerts. Now, I'd like to begin by walking you through our client chart. It's really what makes Echo unique to any other vendor in the industry right now. We call our client chart the visual health record, and I will show you why. To access the client chart, I have the client list over here, and I can use the search, or I could use the client list over here. So if you don't have access to the clinical home tab, or you just don't happen to be on the Vantage Point, you always have quick access to the client list right here. Now, along with those two options, you'll find many built-in shortcuts scattered throughout EchoVantage that will give you access to the client chart that you're trying to see. So I decided to start searching for my client using their date of birth. I could also search by client code, first name, last name, aliases, preferred name, social security number, even the location of their enrolled program. I could search by a combination of items. So if I knew the year they were born and their first name, I could also search that way too. So I'm going to open up Ernesto's client chart. And once we arrive, we're going to be taken to the first tab that's on the client chart, which in this case happens to be the timeline and what we call the visual health record. Now, what you're looking at here is a snapshot in time of approximately 8 weeks. worth of care for Ernesto. When you first come to this page, you're going to see today's date highlighted, and it's going to be the central point of the timeline. This way we can look into future upcoming appointments and services and have a quick glimpse at what has recently happened. Now, I'm going to quickly navigate to a point in time on Ernesto's chart where there was a little bit more action, and this will help me explain what you're looking at a little better. So as you saw, we have the month and the dates up here, and we're looking at different days. On the left, we have the headers, and below the headers are different items that correlate to the client, whether it's care that they have received, an assessment that has been completed, or critical information to know about the client. So as you can see, for example, I have an intake header, and then all the items that would fall under intake are right here. Likewise, I have my assessments and screening header, and any assessments and screening that have been completed for Ernesto will show here. Now, the elements that you're seeing on the timeline itself directly correlate with the date that is under and the line item under the header. We call these items depictions. So the singular icons that you're seeing here represent something specific that occurred that day. So this was a PHQ-9 assessment that was completed. This is a privacy notice that was signed. And down here, we can see all the different services. Now, a bar represents something that's occurring over a span of time, like for instance, a hospitalization or an active allergy, a current and active release, a program they're enrolled in, a diagnosis, different medications. Now, the icons and the colors that you're seeing were configured specifically to tell you something. We've used the color red anywhere where we feel there's something critical that needs to be identified and seen right away. So we're using visual elements to alert you to something. So in this case, it's an expiring consent. It's a PHQ-9 with a score indicating depression. Could be a missed appointment. Now, one of the things that our customers just love the most about our software is that you can configure this client chart to adapt to your own workflows. So you can very easily configure the headers that you have and the items that fall under the headers. You get to configure the colors and the icons that you use. You even get to configure who gets to see what on the client chart here. So as an administrator, like I mentioned before, I'm seeing everything. But if I was an intake user, I would only be able to see this intake section here. I like to always point that out because the first time looking at the visual health record, it can seem like there's a lot going on, but we're going to allow you to build it in a way so that your users are only seeing what's necessary for them to see for them to do their job. A really important element to understand about why we built the visual health record is because it's important to be able to easily see and analyze all of these items together at one glance. So, a hospitalization might not mean all that much to us if that's all we're seeing. It's really nice to see what items led up to that hospitalization without having to navigate through multiple screens or multiple tabs of a client chart. So, without clicking on anything or having to navigate around, I can see that there were some missed appointments. I can see that Ernesto stopped a medication. I can see there was an incident and then a risk assessment. And notice that when I hover over these items, I'm getting a display with some critical information. So not only do I have the depiction of this service, I can also see that it was at 10 a.m. I can see that it was a crisis intervention. And the staff that completed it was Suki Norris. And then that's what led to this hospitalization. Now, it's important to know what's happened to the client after they got out of hospitalization. Are they doing better? And I can easily see through the depictions that I built, that things are looking a lot better. The PHQ-9 scores are better. The score of the risk assessment has improved. Ernesto's coming to services and he seems to be doing well with the medication he's on. There's really no other way for you to see and be able to tie all of this information together without getting this visual view. One thing to take note of is notice that when we're looking at Ernesto's chart here, there is no other PHI for any other client. So if Ernesto is looking at this screen, that is okay. And sometimes people like to use this as a tool to show Ernesto what has been going on and how maybe specific actions lead to something that's not desirable. So it is really easy to navigate along the timeline. You have the scrolling options to just jump to the next day or the next screen, or you can just pick a date and time. You can jump to today, or if you want to look at the last PHQ-9, see this date here? That will take you to that last PHQ-9 assessment. If I want to see the PHQ-9 before this last assessment, I can click again. If I want to move forward in time, I have the dates to take me forward instead of backward. So sure, it is easy to navigate around the timeline quickly, but sometimes it's important to see the data in more of a grid view. And you can do that with our history forms. This grid will show me the date, the total score, and the depression severity if it had been indicated on the form when it was taken. You can sort and filter within these grids, and you can also choose what is displayed here. So using a history form for PHQ-9 scores or seeing services, and an important piece that we added to this grid is identifying if the note is complete or not and signed. Medications is a great history form to be able to look at. You can quickly be able to see all the medications, when they were active, the refills, the dosage, the days supplied. So when it doesn't make sense to scroll through the timeline to view something, that's where you would use your history form. Now, it's also important to point out that this is actually where you complete your work too. So if I wanted to complete a new PHQ-9 form, I would just select this little green button and then I could complete it. This PHQ-9 form does automatically score for me, and I can see the scoring definitions over here. Once I'm complete, I would just save it. And now this PHQ-9 that I just did is a depiction on the timeline. So not only do you have quick access to visually see what's going on, but your workflow or the items you would be completing are easily accessed on the left-hand side here too. So here's another thing that our customers absolutely love about our product. We have a lot of forms that come standard, and you can pick from a large catalog we have of forms you would potentially like to have. These forms are all built using our own form designer tool, and that is something that our customers have access to and we provide training on. So if you liked our lethality assessment, but you wanted to make some changes to it, it would be really easy for us to do that using our form designer tool, or for even our customers to do that using our form designer tool. You'll see that in many of our forms, data can be pulled forward. So an example of that, I'll open up this service, take you right to the progress note for that service. And in this particular note, I was able to pull forward the short-term goal from this client's treatment plan. So I didn't have to type this in. I was able to select it from a drop-down of available goals from the treatment plan. Now I just skipped over to a medication management service so I could show you an example of a medication management note that we have. In this note, I automatically copied in the current medications for Ernesto and the current diagnoses. In this particular note, I've added a copy forward button. And now anything that was in the last note for Ernesto, I have populated here and I can edit it as needed. So that's a very important piece that I would love for you to take away from this demo. One of the biggest benefits is the option to design your forms to be the most efficient for your clinicians and their workflow. Echo really prides itself in not making our customers conform their workflows to what the system will allow you to do, but rather the application conforming to your workflows. And that is a really easy thing for you to achieve by taking advantage of our Form Designer tool. So I'll save this, and once I save it, I can sign it. I'm going to sign it as the staff. I've set up a pin signature for myself, but if I preferred, I could sign using a mouse or a touch screen. If this was something that the client should be signing to, like if it were a treatment plan, we do have that option. Or if someone needed to sign on behalf of Ernesto, we can do that too. Now, I have this unlock form feature in case we needed to make an edit to something, but I only have access to do this because I've been given permissions to have this feature turned on. So if I have access to do this, I can. So I'll just go ahead and unlock it. I do have to pick from a predefined list, and I do need to give an explanation. Once I do that, I can make my edit. I can sign it again. I have my new signature down here, but I also have the history of what happened. So I'll be able to know that this had been signed before and then got unlocked. We can see why, and then we can see when the new signature was added. All right, so I've taken you back to the client chart here so I can show you a few more things about it. At the top here, we do have a header. It is collapsed by default, but really easy to uncollapse. And then I get that really critical information that I would like to know about the status of the admission date, their address, and who in my organization may be treating Ernesto. In addition to that, I have this memo field where I can just type something out, and I can also make it something that is of high importance. And once I do that, this memo button here changes color to orange. That way, when it's collapsed, you have that visual indicator that there's something important. Now I have the client picture right here. I can see the birth date and the name and client ID. And then I have all these little icons. This first one will give this client access to the client portal. This one will take me to educational resources about this client's diagnoses or medications. And it is actually a link that will take you to the Medline Plus website. And this is a great way for you to be able to quickly print off some information about their diagnoses or the medications for the client. The next icon will take you to clinical decision support if you have that set up. These two icons will allow you to either import a continuity of care document or export one for this client. And EchoVantage is a stage 3 meaningful use certified product. And that's the reason why we have a lot of these features that I'm showing you right now. Now, this icon in the middle is a really cool feature, so I will show you that. We call this feature Informs, and Informs will allow you to send a specific form or assessment to the client for them to complete on their own. So once you've selected what you want the client to complete, you can decide, do I want this client to complete it on a device because this client is currently in my waiting room? Or do I send it to the client portal for them to complete in their own time when they're home, either before they've come in for their appointment or after? Now I'll be showing you a little bit more in just a bit of what that looks like on the client portal. The last piece of the client chart that just want to point out is all of these tabs here. So these tabs are all different things. The schedule tab will allow you to set up another appointment or just view this client's schedule. And when you do that, you can see your own schedule as the staff that's logged in, but you will not see any other client PHI. So this is a screen that the client can look at with you. Our profile tab is where you enter in demographic data. Contact info is where you can store the contact information for your client or for the family and friends of the client. The household tab at this point allows you to track income over time and household size, and these two items do directly work with our built-in sliding fee schedule. And you can also note the client living arrangements over time. The next two tabs are directly related to episodes, whether it's an open admission episode or an open pre-admission episode, and you can also indicate the staff here, which ties directly with our alert feature. And if this client is currently in a pre-admission status, this is a good area where you can document the presenting problems and the services being requested. The enrollments tab will take you to all of the programs that this client could be enrolled in. So maybe they're in your outpatient program, but also in a substance abuse program. The Diagnosis tab will allow you to easily see any active diagnoses and as well as any inactive diagnoses. This is where you could add a new diagnosis if you wanted, or if you just wanted to see more detail about a current diagnosis, you could do that too. Payers tab is where you can track which insurance the client has had over time, and this directly works with the fiscal part of EchoVantage. The account tab is what the front desk would probably end up using to check the current balance and collect a payment at that time, or just see payments that they've made in the past. And then finally, we have documents, and this is for all of your scanned images. So whether it's the client profile picture or their insurance card or just anything that was done on paper, that all would live here. You can upload it directly from your computer, or you can use a batch scanning solution if you would like. So I'm going to point out at this time, once again, how configurable our application is. These tabs are only seen by the user group that has access to see them. You can turn them completely off for a user group, or you can make them read-only. If you like our profile tab, but maybe it doesn't meet your exact needs, you can add fields, you can remove fields, you can hide fields based off of the user group. This is all very configurable and once again showcases the benefits of our form designer tool. To take that one step further, you can add additional tabs to the client chart if you want. If you want a tab that's a call log for this client, you can do that. If you want a tab that gives you information on other health organizations that treat this client, you can do that. It's all something that can be configured within the application and our form designer tool. So I want to give you a couple of examples of that. I just signed in as a case manager. Notice I don't have as many items on the left-hand side here, and I don't have as many tabs as you saw before. I removed the Payers tab in the Account tab, but I did add this Call Log tab. So this isn't a standard tab that we have, but it's just an example of something that you could add if you wanted to. I also trimmed down my profile tab as well. Now I'm signed in as a front desk user. I have even less items on the left-hand side here, and notice that the first tab I was taken to was that special call log tab that I set up because perhaps the front desk, their main job duty is answering phones and logging calls from clients. So it makes sense for them to see the call log first. They have access to the profile tab, contact information, the household tab, but notice not the timeline. The front desk doesn't need to see any of that clinical data. In this case, I have allowed the front desk user to see the payers, but they can't make any edits to them. And even though they have access to documents, they can only see specific types of documents, like the client picture or an insurance card. Now I'm logged in as a billing user. Same scenario as the others. I only have access to the left-hand features that I need to do my job and only the client information that I need to see in order to do my job. Now, hopefully that gives you a better idea of how you can configure the system for each user group and how you can configure the application to meet your own workflows. All right, so back to the Vantage point. There are just a few more things that I want to talk to you about before I move on from the overview. This clinical home screen is showing me the scheduler, and by default, I see my schedule and a day view of my appointments for today. The colors here indicate the type of appointment I have. The darker blue is showing me that this is a direct service appointment with a single client. The green shows me any group appointments. And then this teal bar here is showing me something that might not be client related. So I would use that to block off time for a lunch break or a staff meeting or just time to catch up on my documentation. You can see your schedule by the week or the month. You can see your schedule side by side with a client's schedule. And this might be helpful in case you wanted to let the client know that they had another appointment that day. I could even see an entire team of people's schedule. So I'll pull up the AM program staff here and I can look at everybody's schedule all at once. Notice that there are these gray areas and then the white areas. The white areas are indicating times that that staff has available. If you wanted to drill down to see what staff was available at a certain location, you could do that too. If you wanted to drill down to see what staff were available for a certain type of appointment, you have that option as well. And in addition to that, we do have the search for next available staff feature. So the rest of the items on the clinical homepage here, as I mentioned, was the client list. And the client list should be my own client list because I have client filtering turned on. And there's lots of different ways you can configure how a client list is filtered. And down here, I have my messages and alerts. Our in-app messaging is a fantastic feature of EchoVantage. It's one of my favorite things because not only is it a way just to message someone, but it's also a way to call someone to action for something. So in this case below, someone's asking me to add authorization, and I have a link to take me to the client that needs that authorization. And it takes me to the tab and the payer of which I need to get authorization for. I'll just hit the back button. It's also a way for capturing signatures. So the case manager has asked me to sign this form. So I can just select that icon and I'm taken to the form that needs my signature. I can compose a message to someone else if I want. And right now I have all of these four different options turned on for myself. I can message a single staff. I can message a client to the client portal. I can message a group of staff, or I can use EMR Direct to securely send a continuity of care document. Now, I'm going to expand my messages because there's one other thing I want to show you. If you're a type of staff that needs to sign off on a lot of things, it's probably easier just to stay right in your messages and be able to do those. Because not only do we have the icon that would take you to the form, but we have also embedded the form into the messaging, and you have the option of signing it here too. The other part of the clinical home screen that I want to show you is our alerts that we have. EchoVantage comes with many different alerts that you can configure, and you can configure them to what staff the alert should go to, when they should get their alert, and whether it's just a notice or a warning or a critical item like you're seeing here. So as I'm going through my alerts, and let's say I wanted to correct this and I wanted to sign off on this progress note, I just click the icon and then I'm taken to the service for the note that I need to sign. What I think is the best thing about alerts is not only do you have the option of our many different standard alerts that EchoVantage comes with, but it's really easy to build your own custom alerts. The last tab on the Vantage Point that I want to show you today is the fiscal overview. Now, we have built the fiscal overview to be visual in nature, just like we built the visual health record. So this is the area for our billers to go to. This landing page gives them lots of visual indicators of where they are at in each stage of the billing process. So starting at the top, I can see that there's 77 services that are ready to be processed into claims. I then can see that there's a little over $14,000 that's ready to be billed out. Once a claim is billed out, it then becomes an unpaid balance, and I'll be able to see what I have in my accounts receivable here. Now, once I've either manually added a payment for a claim or I've imported the 835 and I've gone through the process of making sure that I'm reconciling with my deposits, I can see which of those payments have been successfully connected to a claim and then can be officially posted. Now, each time a charge is created or a payment is posted or an adjustment is posted, it is a GL transaction. And I can see right now that there's around 1,500 GL transactions that will be posted to the GL this month. The benefits of posting to the GL in EchoVantage is that one, it will give you a CSV file that can be imported into your own fiscal software. And two, it gives you a screenshot in time of your fiscal data for that month. And then lastly, I can see if there's any unapplied payments. If there's payments coming in that had trouble connecting with an open matching claim, I would be able to come here to take care of those. I have the amounts of each of these items, but I can also see the last time it was processed. So if I wanted to see the last time someone did billing, that tells me that really easily here, that it was done on October 28th. And just in case something isn't connecting quite right, a service isn't properly connecting to a payer and a rate or a bill code, you'll be able to see all of those exceptions here as errors. So right now I can see that there's 26 claims that I need to look at that need attention. And likewise for billing, billing errors will indicate whether a client is missing a gender or a billing address. And those are important things to fix before the claim goes out the door because those things will get your claims file rejected. Now, lastly, here we have our thresholds that we've set for ourselves. So for unprocessed services, we've set a threshold of 250 services. And for unbilled charges, we've set a threshold of $10,000. Now, because my unbilled charges exceed the $10,000, I'm getting a red bar. And just like the visual health record, we like to use red to alert you to something critical. Now, when we're looking at this screen, we're looking at all claims and all services, but we could certainly use the filters over here to narrow it down by a certain date range or a certain payer. Now, not only is this just an informative screen, it's also the workstation. So when a user wants to go and process these 77 services into a claim, they would simply select unprocessed services. I have a lot of options to filter the services that I want to bring over into claims if I needed to. I can see the history of everything that's been done in the past, when it was done, and by which user. And my errors tab is actually a really friendly screen, even though it doesn't sound friendly. Anything that got stuck as an error will display right here. I can filter these errors if I want to. I can also filter by type of error. So if I wanted to see all things that were causing an error because of authorization, I could do that. Anything in blue is a link that will take me to the areas of the application to help me correct this error faster. And probably the most helpful link on this page is the link that will take you to the actual item that's causing the error. So I select it and I'm taken to where I would need to take a peek at that authorization. And this is where messages comes in really handy. Like I showed you before, if I'm not the user that should add more authorizations, I could simply go to the messages, compose a message to a staff or to a group, select who I want to send it to, add my message, and request a review. And that's how they get that icon to come directly here. Now, just like what you saw before, our processing engines all work the same way, like unbilled charges. You have that create tab where you're going to filter what you want to bill for. You have the history tab so you can see what was done in the past and preview your batches before they're finalized, and then correct any errors if there are any. Now, that's just really a quick overview of our billing features. We have some really other cool billing features that can be shown in more detail if you would like to see, like our eligibility checking or checking client balances or payer balances, working denials, working your accounts receivable. But for today, that's all that I'm going to cover regarding the billing items. And I would like to jump right into our placements feature. So now that we've done an overview of EchoVantage, I'd like to focus in on a couple of our features in more depth. Let's take a look at placements and how that works with our foster care feature. So I'm going to open up placements here on the left-hand side, and we're looking at this occupancy tab right here. Each item that you see below is a specific placement. I set all of these up in configuration. Each of these placements represent something that a client could be placed in. So whether it's a foster care home or a residential home or even a group service. These are all examples of things that can easily be managed here using this placement screen. So as you look at each placement, you'll notice that there's a visual indicator on the left here, and that indicator is telling us not only the capacity of that placement, but the current status of how many clients are placed in it. So as I go through and look at these, I can really quickly see that the Smith foster home has no more vacancies. The Zumpy foster home has one vacancy, the residential home has four, and so forth. When I'm looking at this screen, I can see the name of the placement and a quick description. And when I select the placement, I get more detail. The Smith foster home is filled to capacity, and these are the 4 clients that we have assigned to the Smith foster home. We can see their client code, their name, their gender, and the day that they were admitted on. If I needed to know more information on that client, I could just select this card and I'd be taken to the client chart. Now notice down here, we have a yellow triangle with an exclamation point in it. That is telling us that a particular placement has been overbooked. And when we were hovering over it, it tells us that we overbooked by 1. So even though sometimes it may not be ideal to overbook a placement, you still can if it's needed. And to assign a client to a placement is really easy. You just identify the client and fill out the admit date and the admit time. And likewise, it's just as easy to discharge a client. Just enter in the discharge date and the discharge time. And it will be on the client's record that they were in the foster care home for the particular date span that they were, but you'll no longer see them here under the placement itself. So a couple other things to make note of is you can attach any form you want to a placement. You can also give characteristics to a placement. And this is a nice feature to have, especially with foster care and if you're trying to find the right home to place them in, because you can identify the details of the home and then you're able to filter for them up here. So if I just wanted to search for a home that was for teens, I could do that, or for teens and pets. And if you wanted to only limit the placements with vacancy, you could do that too. So, if there is a popular placement that you usually have a wait list for, like maybe the Jones Foster Home here, you can manage that with the waitlist tab. On the waitlist tab, I can see the client and see the placement that they're waiting for and how long they have been waiting for it. If you need to make a note about this client, you can do that. If you need to edit this client, like remove them from the wait list, you can do that too. And when there is available vacancy, that's when you'll get the view matches here. So I can then select this placement and then assign client, and then I'll have the top matching waitlist request show up here. So I'll just select Ernesto and fill in the admit date and the admit time. Going back to the waitlist here, these are in order of who has been waiting longest, but if there's a special need, you can always reorder them accordingly. A nice thing to make note of is that on the client chart, you can turn on the depiction for the waitlist so that you can see that they're currently waiting for a particular placement. And of course, if you have a long wait list, you can use the filters on the top to look for something specific. All right, so now to show you how this works hand in hand with our foster care feature, notice that the Smith Foster Home has this users button right here. If I open that up, I'll be able to see the users that have been assigned to this placement. And in this example, we're saying that Callie is the foster care guardian. So as the foster care guardian, Callie has to fill out daily paperwork on the foster care child and sign off on it. That can be a very incredibly tedious and long process to try to work out unless you are using our remote forms foster care feature. So Callie, as a foster care guardian, has her own login to what we call remote forms. So Callie would come here to her portal login. She would enter in her username and password. She'd log in. She would see the placement that she's connected to, and she would see the youths that are under her care. So if she wanted to fill out her daily required paperwork for Elaine, she would select View Forms and then pick the form that she's going to be completing and fill it out. Now that I've completed it, I can save it, and then I'm able to sign it. Now, when I go to Elaine's client chart, I'll be able to see that a foster daily log was completed. Now, let's say that you needed the foster care guardian to fill out a specific form that wasn't a part of their daily documentation. For example, if you needed Elaine to fill out a PHQ-9, that's where you can use the Informs feature that I was showing you earlier. So I can go to Share Forms while on Elaine's client chart. I can pick the form that I want Elaine to complete, and I'm picking a PHQ-9. I've selected the PHQ-9, and I'm going to send it to the client portal. Now, when the foster care guardian logs in and goes to the forms for Elaine, they'll see that they have an additional form to complete. And since that PHQ-9 has been completed, we can now see it on Elaine's client chart. All right, so the last and final feature I'm going to show you today is going to be the client portal. And I'm actually going to have my good friend and colleague, Scott Taylor, demonstrate this for us.
Welcome. This presentation will cover how clients can use the EchoVantage client portal to see information about their healthcare record. It'll be in two parts. The first portion will talk about what the client can do in the portal and how they access it. And the second part, we'll look at EchoVantage and how you configure the client portal for use. The screen that you're viewing now is the EchoVantage client portal. It's being rendered on a PC. So this is what a user would see when they use their username and login to access their record. I can scale this as well. If someone's using a tablet, it will look like this. And if they choose to view this information on their phone, it will automatically fit to the phone and change the menu options so that it's easier for them to use those on any devices. The home page has 5 parts. I can see any messages that I have received from my providers. I can see all my upcoming appointments. I can also see my client balance, how much I owe currently. And then I can see my health, current medications, and my other records in my electronic health record. In addition to that, you can see I've also been assigned a form that my provider would like me to complete and sign. So looking first at new messages, I can select the view all, and this tells me that Scott Taylor sent me a message today at noon saying, please bring your insurance card to your next appointment. If I want to respond to my provider, I can select all the providers who are in my care group, enter a subject. So I'm going to respond to the reminder and just say, okay. And that information will be sent securely to my provider in the EchoVantage electronic health record. The next section I want to point out is appointments. And this will show any events that have been configured for my client for upcoming days. I can see the detail on that. I can update it, request to reschedule, request to cancel, make another request and attach a note to that and send it to my provider. I can also request an appointment. So if I want to see a specific provider, I want to see Scott Taylor sometime today in the midday, I can put an additional note in here and send that securely to my provider who can then read it in EchoVantage. The balance is for informational purposes. Right now, we are going to work with a bank to integrate collection of credit card payments, both remotely and in EchoVantage in the future. The My Health portion shows me all of my current medications and my records. So right now I have my current medication is Lexapro 5 milligrams. I can select the ellipses and request a renewal. That will go to a medications team that you configure in EchoVantage so the right people get that information. If I want to look at all of my medications that have been prescribed, I can see everything that I have that I have and when it was prescribed. In the records section, I can see my continuity of care document. And this includes the information that the provider wants to share with the client. So there's some information about the document, who the people who are responsible for that client, who created it, who the contact is, patient identifying information such as date of birth and race and contact information, who is the legal authenticator, and how do we contact them. And then depending on what you choose to share with your client, you can show them allergies, most recent vital signs, any assessments that have been completed, their diagnoses, most recent visits, their functional status, any medical equipment or social history, plan of treatment, test results, and medications, as well as family history. This document may also be shared with other providers if EMR Direct is enabled. Finally, we're going to look at forms. And here I can see my client has been requested to complete a form. So we'd like to have this CANS assessment done. When I select it, I can enter the document, complete all of the items on the document. When I save it, that information will be sent directly to EchoVantage and will appear on the client's timeline. If we had requested the client sign this document, they can sign it as well. They do not need any special device to do that. They can use it. They can sign it using their mouse, a Bluetooth device shaped like a pen. They can use the signature capabilities on whatever device they are using. And once that document is signed, it is now locked so that no one can change that document. So I'm going to log out of the client portal. And I'm going to go log into EchoVantage. Here, I will show you where the information that was sent to the client is located. So here, I can see there was a message that was composed to Dorothy. I can expand this and see all my sent messages. So there's the reminder that I sent to her to please bring your insurance card to the next appointment. And in the inbox, I can see the response that she sent a moment ago. And I can send another client message back to Dorothy. The medication information, that request went to a separate group that would handle that medication request and could communicate with the client. So how do we set this up? In Dorothy's record, on the timeline, there's a section in the header to configure client portal access. So here is a simple toggle to be able to indicate whether Dorothy will have access to that portal. When I go to update or create a new account, I can select the email address that she has on file. I can then enter a username for Dorothy. And if I were to update that account, it would send her a new password request to that email address. So she can go in, identify herself, and set up her new password according to the rules that are set for client portal passwords. If I want to send a form to Dorothy, I can go to the Share Forms icon, and I will see a list of all of the forms in EchoVantage that have been enabled for sharing with the client. So the one I sent previously was the CANS. I can send a new form if I wish to, and I can share that with the client by selecting the client portal, and that will appear in Dorothy's portal. There's some additional configuration that needs to be done to enable use of the client portal. So here in the menu item, I can go to the client portal and I can decide what access clients will have. We'll be able to see appointments, client balances, messages, my health, and share forms. And I can also define where I want to send my appointment requests to. So I've created a group called Client Portal Requests. That's where that is going to go. And then medication renewal requests will go to another team that I have created called the medications team. So that's an overview of how to set up the client portal. This is one of the tools that we've included in EchoVantage to help you improve client engagement by using technology to communicate with your clients when they do not come into the office. Thank you very much.
All right, so that completes our demonstration for today. We hope you enjoyed watching it just as much as we did recording it. Please reach out if you have any questions. Thanks and have a good day.